Welcome to Outnumbered Overtime. You can join us on the web
in honor of
Harris being gone.
God bless her.
So we just came out of the breaking news situation with the active situation on Ohio State University campus. The update there was that it was a male suspect who drove his car up over a curb, got out of the vehicle with a butcher knife, starting attacking students there and whoever was around. An OSU police officer took a gun out and shot the suspect. So that was the latest from that. And we are getting good reports on the wounded victims. Seem, as the report was from the doctors, most seem to be in pretty good condition. No life-threatening injuries.
Is it too soon to start floating theories on what this may be? Because as we get information in, and it certainly has been a trickle, we haven't gotten a ton of information about the suspect, what the suspect looked like, gender. Obviously, we don't know anything about
male
motivation.
Suspect,
okay, so male suspect, there we know that. But, you know, Pete, compared to some of the other incidents we've seen, not only in this country, not only in college campuses, but across the globe, what does this strike you as?
I mean, this is all speculation. We were very clear about that. But, I mean, if it was neutralized within a minute, if it was the injuries with no immediate deaths and the stabbing was a butcher knife, I mean, it doesn't strike me as someone who had extensive planning or extensive knowledge or was, brought all the arsenal to bear that they could, which is a great thing, which is a good thing. Thank goodness the casualty count at whatever level it is where it is.
We're also spared the president's admonishment and lecturing about gun violence.
Yes. So, I mean, I never we don't know anything about motives at all. And when I initially heard vehicle, gun, knife, I thought, okay, this sounds like it could have been a complex type deal. You get the details in it. It looks like it maybe wasn't as complex as you think, especially if the cops were able to neutralize it within a minute. Turns out guns can save lives, too.
Yeah, that's right.
It sounds like it.
And it turns out officers can be a very good thing to have on campus at universities. I say that sort of in jest because, as we know, we've been reporting on this show, some of these universities. Were you here for the story about the university who felt that it was an attack against them to have police who supported Donald Trump on campus protecting them?
When University of Michigan? What? It was University of Michigan, I thought, wasn't it? I'll discuss amongst yourselves.
We'll have to remember that one.
But it was a group of African Americans who didn't feel they needed a safe space because they didn't feel like
how many parents are so thankful right now that their kids' lives were spared because of the quick actions of that OSU police officer. And and these university police departments, they are as well trained as any municipal or state police department, and they are on their game because they know not only do they have to deal with rogue mass murderers that at times prey upon these campuses, they also have to look out for terrorism and protests that can turn violent. So, they are tasked with the kind of jobs that, city police are, but oftentimes they are operating in gun-free zones. Therefore, they have to protect even more people. And it just goes to show, as Pete said, good training and quick thinking.
George Washington University, and sorry, I didn't do it on the show. It was a different show, but this was a huge story. George Washington students, cops protecting us is an act of violence because police union endorsed George Washington University endorsed Trump.
I believe it's the second most expensive school in the nation.
Wow, very pricey.
George Washington University. I mean, it's just.
We know Hampshire College is $62,000 a year. I totally imagine that.
It was University of Michigan students calling for a safe space from police since they supported Trump, since the police union supported Trump.
I love that. I love the concept of a safe space that, like, full-grown adults needing a space that allegedly exists in a fantasy land. I just keep thinking of my brother talking about how his safe space is his garage full of shotguns.
But they're not adults.
But Megan,
to call them adults is an insult to adults.
But Megan, to that point, like, say this killer gets out of their car and runs after you, are you going to say, "Hey, man, where's my safe space?" Come on. No, that's not cool at all. And do you think the person's going to be like, "Oh, whoa, you're absolutely right. My bad. I'm getting back in the car."
It's just this infantilization of my generation, and it's pathetic. And I really fear for the future in a lot of ways when you can't go out into the real world and face the realities of an ugly society that we live in, where shootings happen on college campuses, and you need some kind of fantasy that doesn't exist.
This is a point I was going to make.
They didn't have that, by the way, when I was in college, and I graduated 8 years ago.
I didn't.
So I don't. This is a very new thing in the past, again, like 8 years, and I think I want to know who came up with the idea that, like, on this room on campus, nothing bad will ever happen in here.
College professors probably, but I had some college professors that were super left wing because I was in a sorority and we used to have to wear stupid outfits like once a week, and they were repelled by it. And one of my English professors made a big stink about she didn't like me because I was in a sorority. But anyway, in terms of we need to protect one another and living in this kind of like liberal fantasy land, that's the problem.
I'll tell you exactly what it is. Though. It's helicopter parents.
No, but I want to make a point about the Democratic leadership, who most of them are. Chuck Schumer's the youngest one at the age of 66. So it's maybe not an age-related problem. It's the fact you surround yourself, and this is something you were talking about last week, you surround yourself with people who only agree with you. They don't have a difference of opinion. They don't have a different background. They don't lead different lives. You surround yourself with people like that, and it breeds this, I can't handle.
No, you're absolutely right. But so the parents create this environment in their kids, and they coddle them and wrap them in bubble wrap their entire childhood and do everything for them. And you read so many stories about how parents are asked to leave college campuses after a week because they sleep in their kids' dorm rooms, getting them ready for college life. You know, there's no independence in this country. But then you're absolutely right. You have this indoctrination of, academics, liberal professors who just want to continue to propagate this information that has now bled into Congress, which will gladly do whatever they can and create whatever federal either debt relief or grant program they can to continue funding these cartels.
No, that's exactly right.
You know, it's like
there's no personal responsibility left at all. It's like college debt. It's not the student's problem. It's not the parents' problem. It was forced on them. Because I listen to public radio a lot and a lot of like left-wing podcasts. The podcasts are good. The hosts not so much. And somebody said it referenced like the housing crisis and mortgages, and it literally said mortgages forced on the American people. Bad mortgages forced on the American people. And I'm like, where did they get that?
But at what point do you no longer have personal responsibility in a transaction like that?
Well, the point you're making also is that we're not teaching our kids at all that life is inherently unfair. Life is inherently flawed. You're going to get bruised, and it's how you bounce back and how you respond. And when you're not doing that in the family, and then you're not doing it in grade school, and then you're certainly not doing it in the universities, then it promulgates into our politics, where we want a safe space, and it promulgates into how America views the world and whether or not we're able to lead and stand strong. If we have a generation of snowflakes and safe spaces, what happens when there is a real vicious enemy that we need to confront?
I love the term snowflakes.
You do?
Well, what about in the armed forces? I mean, do you see that with younger people entering the armed forces?
I think
really? Has it changed the military?
Not all of them. I mean, there's still such a great reservoir of Americans who join the military from great families.
And kids who work hard and they come from families with a great work ethic.
However, basic training has also changed over time. And, you've got stories. I used to have drill folks tell us stories about stress cards that privates can hold up, and they're like, I'm stressed, and the drills. I mean, where does that come from? I don't know if that still exists. I can't speak to that, but there is a sense that how you lead troops today is very different than how you led them before. There's more explaining, things like that, buy in to the mission as opposed to, hey, private, you go do this, you go do that.
And
it's a reflection of society.
There's absolutely no difference in gender in the military. That being a woman and being a man is the exact same experience, and going into combat, you should just let women everywhere, regardless of the fact that most men have an instinct to protect and save a woman. Again, feminists go crazy on my Twitter feed. I don't care. I have such a problem with it.
It's such a disservice to everybody.
Yes.
When I was like my first writing job, like you got made an editor really quickly after like a year and a half. And I remember there was one kid who was writing for me, and like I would just give him orders like, go do this.
They can't handle it.
And the person started crying in front of me, and I looked at him, I was like, what are you crying about? It was like, well, you're yelling at me. I was like, didn't your parents yell at you? I'll never forget that. Just bawling in front of me. I didn't even raise my voice until now. Until you started crying.
In the workplace, you have to be so careful now, and there are too many feelings.
Yeah,
I have like a couple of feelings left in my right shoulder blade.
But remember when you were starting out? I mean, don't you remember when you were making a name for yourself and doing whatever you could and volunteering for more work and trying to make an impression, so hopefully at some point you could get a promotion and prove yourself? Perhaps you did it in the Army, but I
waited for Bernie Madoff for 13 hours a day in the freezing cold outside of his apartment on 65th Street.
Yeah.
I put cardboard under my shoes because my feet were freezing. Thanks, Pete Hegseth, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
That's the best hobo story I've ever heard all day.
All right, we'll see you back at noon tomorrow.
That's fascinating.